I am gonna admit right off the bat that I did AI generate some cute Hyrax images for this presentation. Just gonna own that. Um, I wish that I had time to like source made images for stuff like this, but that was not on the radar for this presentation. I'm Rob Kaufman. I'm currently serving as the tech coordinator for Samvera. I have historically done quite a bit of work with Notch 8. I'm kind of independent from that now, but still really supporting that awesome team. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about upgrading Hyrax. I've been upgrading Rails applications since 2008, and that's because I started writing them in 2005, and it was about 2007, 2008 that we started having to upgrade them. And so I've been at this for a long time, and there are quite a few steps and a lot going on. Um, so yeah, I'm hopeful that we can have a good conversation about it. I know that upgrading your Hyrax application, especially once it's live and up and being used, feels like a lot. And I just want to sort of talk about the process and what we can do to be making it easier for folks. But also, there are things we can do as a community to make this easier on you, but also the steps, like understanding the steps, I think makes it a little less scary. So, a little bit of the emotional arc of upgrading. Oh no, everything's changed or moved. Wait a minute, no, it's just that there's layers. If we have tests around the scary starts and fix them one by one, and then we can ship it. That is sort of the journey, so to speak. And so let's talk about what those layers might be. The core move is to, and this is true broadly of all Rails applications, and specifically for Hyrax, is upgrading your Ruby version, doing whatever Rails upgrade needs to be done if there is one, getting your dependencies going, then changing your Hyrax code, and finally updating your application code. So I think that if you approach it from this layered perspective, it really reduces the effort. The It can be a little boring to use this recurring pattern, especially if you go minor version by minor version by minor version, but it really does avoid changing five major variables at once. And it makes it much easier to track down what breaks in between each change. So Ruby gets to go first because it is the sort of the runtime floor. It means changing the dev environment. It means usually upgrading your CI or any Docker images you're using. And you want to do that to whatever minimum version the Rails you're going to use is, or if you're making a significant upgrade, going to like whatever's current. So something that aligns with your Rails version. Um, this gives you all of the like language and speed and memory performance updates that have been happening in Ruby. So there's a lot of really good stuff there. Often in the 3 series of Ruby upgrades, there haven't been that many breaking changes. There have been a few. But for the most part, things have been relatively smooth in the Ruby land. A lot of it is like getting this baseline stepped. So then we can do the kind of bigger lift of Rails. It can be a little bit more of the like tectonic plate here. Um, Rails recommends that you move one minor version at a time. So if you're on Rails 6, they recommend that you go to 6.1 and then 7.0 and then 7.1 and then 7.2 and then 8.0 if you're going all the way to current. I don't always follow this, to be really honest with you, but if I was giving general advice that you could take without thinking about it, I would tell you to follow that plan. And then, after each upgrade, you run the app update. This is going to give you a list of things that it wants to modify in your configuration or modernize, helps you pick which things to turn on and off. Um, and then this keeps your like framework defaults kind of staged and ready to go. And then you want to fix any deprecations that come from doing this before we go to the next step. Um, this is just about using deprecation notices and fixing things when they're deprecated, not when they're actually broken. Then after that is the dependencies. So they get their own paths. Typically, This is updating your gem file, maybe updating some JavaScript dependencies if you're doing, depending on how you're doing your JavaScript, and really kind of working out these pieces. One secret um, is you want to upgrade compatibility gems. You want to remove any gems you're not using. And I think that one thing that's sort of a secret that people don't know is often if a gem that you're utilizing has not been upgraded to the current version of Ruby or Rails that you're using, you go to the GitHub page and click on, I think it's in Insights, there's a forks graph that you can load. And I like to scan through all the different forks and see if someone has already fixed the upgrade issues for me. And when that is the case, like that's a huge time saver. Like um, I can jump to a version that supports what I want, and keep using a gem. Now, often, if that's the case, that's an indication that the gym isn't being actively maintained, and so we may want to like start thinking about what an exit for that gym is. But fundamentally, this can be a big time saver when you're just trying to get an app upgraded. And then finally, Hyrax itself. Once the platform and the framework are ready to bump Hyrax, we can dig into the Hyrax upgrade. Um, this is where the release notes become operational checklists. The for Hyrax 5, the big themes are things like Valkyrie as default, the Fedora bridge behavior, the metadata indexing changes, some Redis queuing stuff that is optional, and some Solr improvements. There's a lot of things that change, but the reality is the release notes are pretty solid and they're a pretty solid map. One of the things, and we'll talk about ideas at the end of this, which is why I'm moving so quickly because I want to have time for that, is that I think that we should be publishing an upgrade guide for each release that is separate from the release notes. That's more of a to-do list and less of a these are the things that changed. It's the same information packaged differently, but I think that that might be something that would be helpful for folks when it comes to upgrading. I'm going to skip a few slides. I have some detail slides that talk about Hyrax 5 and Hyrax 5.05 and the various upgrades that need to be done. And I'm just going to skip all of that, like kind of practical boots on the ground stuff for the moment, because I want to kind of talk about the bigger picture of this and not just the details for today. But I will publish these slides, and they do contain sort of a step-by-step upgrade guide for the various Hyrax releases from the last year. All right, finally, your application code. Uh, Local overrides, initializers, view templates, custom work types, and the import and export flows. These are all things that you need to be mindful of. If you are using bulk then hopefully most of the code for your import and export is in bulk and you just need to you'll have tackled that when you did dependencies. This comes last because that you need the platform to be stable as we upgrade our code. And we may need to remove local customizations that no longer are necessary. Maybe you customize something and then contributed it back to Hyrax, and now it's time to pull that off. Um, I often will open every file and look at it when I do this. Everything in the app directory, I will open every single one and look at it. That is a really daunting thing to sign yourself up for, to be honest with you. It doesn't take that long, right? It might take an hour or two. I usually break it up and do uh, you know, um, like the first couple directories, and then I'll take a break, and then I'll do the next couple directories, and then I'll take a break, and then I'll do the models, which is usually the biggest one, or the controllers, like and so that I can be mindful. It's really easy to get to a place where you're just clicking through the files and not actually seeing them anymore. But I do think that, one thing that can be super helpful, and this is a discipline the Notch 8 team has been using for some time now, is to add override headers. So when you override a behavior in Hyrax or any of its dependencies, if you just take the extra few seconds it takes to write a thing at the top of the file that says override, the name of what you're override, the gem you're overriding, so maybe you're overriding blacklight behavior, and what version you're overriding, and then why you're overriding it. So here are some examples of that. And these are pulled from Haiku, like out of the Haiku code base. So at one point we upgraded overwrote a file for Hyrax 5.2. version user access, and setup role dropdowns. And then this one is from the 5.0 release candidate, add, inject, show theme views. This is a bunch of things that are overridden. Correct host names from manifests, add IIIFAV, override for this one bug that's maybe still open or maybe it's been closed already, and then use the Haiku show presenter instead of Hyrax's presenter. So there's a lot that's changed in that file. And then the last one is a JavaScript version of the same thing, which is overriding a Hyrax 5 behavior to use work titles for collection thumbnail selection. So these markers mean that you can, one, search the app for override colon Hyrax and find all the Hyrax overrides. One of the things that we do occasionally, like when we're really, like, especially if we're going, when we move from version 5 to version 6, for example, is we will change the version number to say version 6. So if we verified that this is still a valid override for version 6, we change the override statement to line up with that. So it's nice because that version number there in the line tells us when the last time somebody checked the code base to see if you still need that override or not. Um, Testing, comprehensive tests are your emotional support animal. I can't say enough about the security you get by having a good test suite. In Historically, writing comprehensive tests has been very expensive and time consuming. Um, Writing ETE tests with something like Playwright and the Playwright MCP server, it makes this much, much cheaper in 2026 than it has ever been, frankly. And so, like, we're kind of running out of excuses to not have really good comprehending test suites. And I think that fundamentally, anything you catch in tests is a bug that you're not going to have to catch in staging or production. And like that's a big win. All right. Testing the behaviors of the repository. Both Hyrax and Haiku have excellent test plans. Um, Taking one of those and adopting it and modifying it is a really possible way to do the manual testing side of this. These are some of the things that you need to test: creating and editing works, uploading characterizing files, generating derivatives, the search interface, various permissions and workflows, and then import, export, and any of the sort of ancillary things like OAI and IIIF. These are your sort of high level end-to-end things that need to be tested typically. You want to make bugs cheap to find. This is one of the things that testing can do for you, is it makes it easier and cheaper to find the bugs. Things that do that are small commits, one layer per branch or PR, having good CI, staging smoke tests, and rollback points. The reality is that no bugs is not a real thing. That's not something that happens in real code. And so the goal is to make the bugs cheap to find and easy to fix. So having clear rollback points, being able to like make smaller commits and have easier spots to say, okay, well, I know the code is that's broken is in this little section. Like that can really, really help. One of the things that's true about doing big jumps in your upgrades is that it means that it could be in any of those changes. You know, you might have brought in 10,000 changes. It could be in any, like the bug you're trying to figure out is could be in any one of the 10,000. So that's really tricky. And then finally, I'm running out of time. Here's just sort of a checklist of the things that we go through when we're upgrading an application, and just trying to try and bring it all to one page and sort of sum it up at the end. Okay, I have a couple interactive things, and I'm going to leave these open. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them. So the first one that I'm going to drop in the chat is a link to a Slido, asking folks what their thoughts are on what we, the community, can be doing to make upgrades easier. So if you could just we're going to take 2 minutes of my remaining couple minutes here and just take a look at that. And then I'm actually gonna jump in two more to follow up with that. Um, so all right, we're going async. I'm giving you that as homework. And I'm giving you these two as homework also. So this one is just a quick, like, how often do you think you should upgrade? Or do you want to upgrade? And then how often do you actually upgrade? So that's homework. I'm going to leave those open for a couple days. They should be open now. Let me double check that that is true. I know that there was an issue earlier with one of them not being open. Okay, those should all be open. Oh no, I can only open one at a time? Cute. Okay, I'm gonna leave the first one open then, and then I'll open the second one. Oh no, people are able to vote. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. That makes me feel better. All right. And then finally, I'm gonna jump to some closing thoughts here, which are um, small steps. We want to make sure we have excellent footing, which is what Hyraxes are known for. And we have to be surprisingly tough. Um, but you don't have to be alone here. This is a big thing that the community should be providing support for and helping with. And that's something that is a major theme for me this year, as you heard from my first slide. Um, and I think will continue to be just a really critical piece of the story for why doing this as a community is the right way to go. Um, all right, I have used up all but 1 minute of my time. Does anyone have any immediate questions?